It's 3 a.m. You're staring at the ceiling. Your phone is face down beside you because you promised yourself you wouldn't check it. But the real answer to why you're awake right now is far stranger than stress, or screens, or too much coffee. You've been taught that a good night's sleep means 8 uninterrupted hours. Lights off, eyes closed, nothing until morning. If you wake up in the middle of the night, something feels wrong. You reach for your phone, you check the time, you wonder what's broken in you. Nothing is broken in you. For most of human history, that 8-hour block didn't exist. Your ancestors didn't sleep the way you think they did. They slept in 2 parts. Historian A. Roger Ekirch spent years digging through diaries, court records, and medical texts from pre-industrial Europe. He kept finding the same phrase over and over in documents centuries apart. People wrote about their first sleep, and then later in the night, their second sleep. Between the two, there was a gap, an hour, sometimes 2, of quiet wakefulness in the middle of the night. What did people do in that gap? They didn't panic. They didn't check a clock, because most of them didn't own one. They prayed. They talked quietly with a partner. Some got up and tended a low fire. Some had sex. Some just lay there thinking, in a state some writers described as calmer and more reflective than their waking hours. One 16th century physician even recommended the gap between sleeps as the best time to study, because the mind was unusually clear. 2 sleeps, a conscious pause built into the night. Not a malfunction, a rhythm. So why did it disappear? Ekirch traced the shift to artificial light. Street lamps, then gaslighting in homes, then electricity. As night became something you could push back, later bedtimes compressed the 2 sleeps into 1. By the early 20th century, first sleep had vanished from the language entirely, not because human biology changed, because the environment around it did. This is where it gets stranger. You might assume this was just a European thing, a quirk of candlelight and cold winters. But sleep researcher Jerome Siegel wanted to test something bigger. What if he looked at people living right now, without electricity, without clocks, without any of it? Siegel and his team studied 3 groups that still live largely without artificial light: the Hadza of Tanzania, the San of Namibia, and the Simonate of Bolivia. Groups separated by oceans, unrelated to each other, with no shared culture or history for tens of thousands of years. Here's the strange part. None of them slept in 2 blocks. They slept in one continuous stretch, but a shorter one than you'd expect. Around 6.5 hours on average. They fell asleep hours after sunset, not right at dusk, and they almost never napped. So the 2 sleep pattern wasn't some universal ancient default. It was something more specific. It showed up in cold European nights, in homes with hearths, and long, dark winters, in a culture that had lamplight, but not enough of it to banish night completely. The groups Siegel studied live near the equator, where nights are shorter and the temperature drop is milder. Different environment, different sleep. What both worlds agree on is this: your ancestors' sleep bent to match their surroundings. Cold, dark, equatorial, temperate. It didn't matter which pattern showed up. What mattered was that the pattern adjusted. Your sleep does the same thing. Right now. Anthropologist Carol Worthman has spent decades studying sleep across cultures that still exist today, from Egypt to Indonesia. She found something you'd never guess from a Western bedroom. In many of these cultures, sleep isn't private. It isn't silent. People sleep in the same room as children, elders, sometimes several generations at once. Fires crackle. Someone coughs. A baby stirs. And people sleep through it, deeply, because their nervous systems were never taught that silence and solitude are the price of rest. You, on the other hand, were taught exactly that. A dark room, a closed door, total silence, or a machine that generates fake white noise to replace it. Not because your body demands those conditions, because your culture built them, brick by brick, into what normal sleep looks like. Here's the part that should make you sit up. If you wake at 3 a.m., and your heart starts pounding because you think something is wrong, that panic itself is learned. Your ancestors who woke in the gap between first and second sleep didn't feel broken. They felt like they were exactly where they were supposed to be, in an ordinary pause in an ordinary night. You could ask, what changed? Light changed. Work schedules changed. Clocks changed. Your body's wiring for sleep is close to identical to a hunter-gatherer's from 40,000 years ago. What changed is everything around that wiring. And your brain, without you noticing, absorbed a rule that has nothing to do with biology and everything to do with the last 150 years of artificial light. Think about your own worst nights. The ones where you wake up and immediately reach for a screen to fill the silence. That instinct isn't hunger for information. It's discomfort with an old, ordinary human state that your ancestors would have recognized instantly and that your culture never gave you a name for. They had names for it, right? No, first sleep, the watch, the gap. You just have insomnia. Same experience, two completely different stories wrapped around it. One treats the waking hour as a disorder to be fixed. The other treated it as a room in the house of the night, one you were meant to walk through slowly. None of this means you should try to split your sleep in two on purpose tonight. Your work schedule, your family, your alarm clock, all of it is built around a single block of sleep. And fighting that alone won't undo 150 years of infrastructure. But something does shift when you understand where the panic comes from. The next time you wake at 3 a.m., staring at the ceiling, you're not malfunctioning. You're not failing at rest. You are, for a moment, doing something your ancestors did for most of human history, in the exact same quiet hour, under a completely different sky. They just didn't reach for a phone. They reached for a thought, and let it sit there, unfinished, until sleep came back for them. Maybe that's the only difference left.